No man would ever choose you. Bianca Valenti delivered the words with a smile so beautiful that anyone watching from a distance might have mistaken the moment for sisterly affection. Only Elena heard the poison beneath it. Bianca leaned closer, pretending to adjust the loose silver thread near Elena's shoulder. Her diamond bracelet brushed against the faded fabric of the gown their aunt had altered 3 times to make it fit. "Especially not in a room like this," Bianca whispered. "Men here choose women they can proudly display. Not women they have to explain." Elena's fingers tightened around the stem of the untouched champagne glass in her hand. The orchestra played beneath the crystal chandeliers of the Palazzo Moretti, filling the ballroom with the slow, elegant rhythm of violins and piano. Gold light shimmered across polished marble floors. Political leaders, shipping magnates, judges, businessmen, and men whose wealth could not be explained by any legal profession moved through the room in tailored tuxedos. It was the annual St. Aurelia Charity Ball. According to the newspapers, the event raised money for orphanages and hospitals. According to Elena's father, it was where powerful families decided which businesses would survive the coming year. And according to Bianca, it was the night she would secure the future of the Valenti family by attracting the attention of the most feared unmarried man in the city, Dante Morello. Before we discover why Dante crossed an entire ballroom for the woman everyone had overlooked, subscribe to the channel and stay with this story until the end, because the choice he made that night would expose a betrayal buried inside Elena's own family. Elena lowered her eyes to her champagne. "I didn't come here to be chosen," she said. Bianca gave a delicate laugh. It was soft enough to sound graceful, yet sharp enough to cut. "Of course you didn't. That would require hope." Elena felt the familiar sting, but she refused to let it show. Bianca had spent years studying precisely where to place her cruelty. She knew Elena would endure insults about her plain dresses, her quiet nature, the ink stains that often marked her fingers, and the modest accounting office where she worked 6 days a week. But hope was different. Hope was the one thing Elena had learned never to display in front of her sister. Bianca glanced across the ballroom. Every movement she made seemed rehearsed. The tilt of her chin, the placement of her hand against her waist, the way she allowed the ruby-red fabric of her gown to catch the light. Their father had spent money the family did not have on that dress. He had imported it from Milan because one of his associates claimed Dante Morello preferred women in red. Elena doubted Dante Morello cared about the color of anyone's dress. From everything she had heard, he cared about loyalty, discipline, and whether the people around him were still useful. The Morello name had ruled the city's docks, private security companies, luxury hotels, and half its construction contracts for nearly 20 years. Dante had inherited the empire at 30 after his father and older brother were killed within 6 months of each other. People said the deaths had nearly destroyed the family. Instead, Dante had found every person involved. No one knew exactly what happened afterward. They only knew the Morello empire had doubled in size. "He may not even come," Elena said. Bianca's smile disappeared. "He will." "You sound certain." Father received confirmation. "From Dante?" "From someone close enough." Elena looked toward the far end of the ballroom. Their father, Vittorio Valenti, stood beside a marble staircase, laughing too loudly at something Senator Calvano had said. His tuxedo fitted badly around his stomach, and sweat shone beneath his thinning gray hair. Anyone else might have seen a wealthy businessman enjoying an important evening. Elena saw the signs. The repeated wiping of his forehead, the nervous tapping of his left foot, the way he checked the entrance every few seconds. Her father was afraid. He had been afraid for months. The Valenti family owned 3 wine distribution warehouses, 2 restaurants, and a logistics company that had once transported goods across the entire country. At least, that was what the public records showed. In reality, one warehouse had been empty for 8 months. The restaurants were losing money, and several trucks had been repossessed. Elena knew because she had reviewed the invoices her father believed she was too unimportant to understand. Money was disappearing. Payments were being made to companies that did not exist. And 2 weeks earlier, Elena had found a loan agreement bearing the seal of Morello Holdings. Her father owed Dante Morello $6 million. The repayment deadline had passed 3 days ago. Elena had confronted him. He had slapped the papers out of her hands and ordered her never to enter his private office again. That same evening, Bianca had announced that the entire family would attend the charity ball. Elena understood the plan immediately. Her father was not bringing Bianca to meet Dante. He was presenting her. A beautiful daughter in exchange for time. Perhaps forgiveness. Perhaps survival. Elena felt sick every time she thought about it, but Bianca appeared delighted by the possibility. "You should move," Bianca said. Elena frowned. "Why?" "You're standing where people can see you. That tends to happen in a ballroom. You know what I mean." Bianca's gaze moved over Elena's dark blue gown. It was modest, simple, and almost 10 years old. Their late mother had worn it to a concert before becoming ill. Elena had kept it wrapped in tissue paper at the back of her wardrobe. Wearing it had felt like carrying a small piece of her mother into a place filled with enemies. Bianca saw only an outdated dress. "Go stand near the musicians," she instructed, "or behind one of the floral arrangements." "You want me to hide behind flowers?" "I want you to avoid confusing anyone." "Confusing them about what?" Bianca stepped nearer. "That we are equal." For a moment, neither sister spoke. A waiter moved past them carrying a tray of champagne. Laughter rose from a group nearby. Somewhere behind the orchestra, a glass shattered, followed by polite applause when a servant quickly cleared it away. Elena looked into Bianca's face. They had the same dark eyebrows and the same green eyes inherited from their mother, but that was where the resemblance ended. Bianca was golden-haired, polished, and impossible to ignore. Elena's hair was dark brown, usually pinned into a practical knot. She wore no diamonds. Her only jewelry was their mother's small silver pendant. "You're right," Elena said quietly. "We aren't equal." Bianca smiled, believing she had won. Elena continued, "I would never allow father to trade me to a stranger to settle his debts." Bianca's face went still. The change was almost invisible, but Elena saw it. Bianca recovered quickly. "You know nothing about father's business." "I know enough. You spend your life counting bottles in a warehouse. And yet I know $6 million disappeared." Bianca's fingers closed around Elena's wrist. Her nails pressed into the skin. "Lower your voice. So you know about the debt." "I know father has temporary difficulties." "Elaborate dresses won't fix temporary difficulties." Bianca's expression hardened. "You have always been jealous of me." Elena almost laughed. "Jealous? Yes. Because people notice me. Because father trusts me. Because when I enter a room, men look. They look because you've spent your entire life learning how to make them. And what have you spent your life learning? How to recognize a lie." Bianca released her wrist as though Elena had burned her. "You are nothing without this family," she said. Elena rubbed the red marks left by her sister's nails. "That may be true. It is true. You live in father's house. I pay rent. You work for his company. I keep his company functioning. You wear mother's old clothes because you cannot afford your own." Elena glanced down at the dress. "Mother loved this gown. Mother pitied you." The words struck harder than Elena expected. Bianca saw it and smiled. Their mother had been dead for 8 years, yet Bianca still knew how to turn her memory into a weapon. Elena looked away before the pain reached her face. Bianca leaned toward her one final time. "No man would ever choose you, Elena. Not father. Not the men here. Certainly not Dante Morello." She lifted her champagne glass. "So stop pretending you came here for any reason other than to witness what it looks like when someone valuable saves this family." Bianca walked away. Elena remained beside the pillar. She stared at the place where the red marks on her wrist were slowly fading. She wanted to leave. She could return to the small apartment she had rented above the oldest Valenti warehouse. She could remove the tight shoes, heat the soup waiting in her refrigerator, and spend the night studying the payment records she had copied from her father's office. But leaving would mean abandoning the only chance she had to understand why her father owed Dante Morello so much money. Someone had manipulated the company's accounts. Someone had created false suppliers and redirected payments through foreign banks. Her father was reckless, but he was not clever enough to build the financial maze Elena had discovered. Another person was involved, and Elena suspected that person would be inside the ballroom tonight. She raised her glass to her lips but did not drink. Instead, she watched. Near the entrance, her father spoke briefly with a tall man named Lorenzo Bassi, the Valenti family's legal advisor. Lorenzo had managed their contracts for more than a decade. He was handsome in a cold, careful way, with silver beginning to show at his temples. When Elena had asked him about the Morello loan, he had pretended not to know it existed. Now he handed Vittorio a folded piece of paper. Her father read it. The color drained from his face. Lorenzo said something close to his ear. Vittorio looked toward Bianca. Then he nodded. A chill moved through Elena. Whatever was planned for tonight was already happening. The orchestra finished one song and began another. Bianca joined a circle of prominent young women near the dance floor. She laughed at the correct moments, touched the correct arms, and positioned herself where she could be seen from the entrance. Their father approached her. He whispered something. Bianca's excitement became impossible to hide. Dante was coming. The knowledge seemed to spread through the room without anyone announcing it. Conversations softened. Men straightened their jackets. Women checked their reflections in polished silver trays. Security guards moved closer to the doors. Elena felt the atmosphere tighten. She had never seen Dante Morello in person. Photographs of him were rare. In the few she had found, he was usually entering a courthouse, leaving a private jet, or standing behind a politician who later denied knowing him. He was 37, unmarried, and rumored to have survived 3 assassination attempts. Some stories described him as a brutal man incapable of mercy. Others claimed he funded hospitals anonymously and paid university tuition for the children of employees killed in service to his family. Elena trusted neither version. Powerful men often paid people to create both their monsters and their miracles. The large ballroom doors opened. The orchestra continued playing for 3 more seconds. Then the conductor noticed who had entered. His baton slowed. The music died. Dante Morello stood at the top of the staircase. He wore a black tuxedo without any visible decoration. No bright pocket square. No jeweled cufflinks. No effort to attract attention. He did not need any. He was taller than Elena expected, with broad shoulders and dark hair swept back from a face made severe by a strong jaw and a thin scar near his right temple. 2 men entered behind him. They stopped near the doors. Dante descended alone. The room seemed to lean toward him. Elena had expected arrogance. Instead, he moved with controlled awareness, examining corners, balconies, doors, and faces with the calm attention of someone who considered every room a possible threat. People smiled at him. He acknowledged almost none of them. Her father hurried forward. "Mr. Morello." Dante stopped at the bottom of the stairs. "Valenti." Just one word. Yet Vittorio's welcoming smile weakened. "We are honored you accepted our invitation. This is not your event." "No, of course not. I only meant that my daughters and I are pleased to see you." Her father gestured toward Bianca. She approached with perfect timing. For months, Bianca had prepared for this moment. She lowered her eyes just enough to appear respectful without seeming timid. "Mr. Morello," she said, "I have heard so much about you." Dante studied her. Bianca smiled. Elena watched from across the room, trying to read his expression. There was no admiration in it. No surprise. Only recognition. "You are Bianca Valenti," he said. Her smile brightened. "Yes. Your father has mentioned you." Elena saw Vittorio relax. Bianca offered her hand. Dante looked at it but did not take it. "Enjoy the evening," he said. Then he walked away. Bianca's hand remained suspended between them. A few people quickly turned their faces to hide their amusement. Her father looked horrified. Bianca lowered her arm, but Elena saw anger flash beneath her smile. Dante moved through the crowd. Men approached him with eager greetings. He answered some, ignored others, and never remained in one place for more than a few seconds. Elena watched him partly out of curiosity and partly because every nervous movement her father made seemed connected to Dante's location. Lorenzo Bassi appeared beside Vittorio again. They spoke urgently. Then Lorenzo looked directly at Elena. He smiled. Elena's stomach tightened. She had never trusted that smile. It was too measured, as though he calculated precisely how much warmth would make people lower their defenses. He crossed the ballroom toward her. "Elena," he said, "you look lovely." "You've never been a convincing liar, Lorenzo." He chuckled. "And you have never understood the value of politeness. What was written on the paper you gave my father?" His amusement disappeared for half a second. "A seating change. You do not handle seating arrangements." "Perhaps tonight I do." "Was it from Dante Morello?" Lorenzo took a champagne glass from a passing waiter. "You should be careful with that curiosity. You should be careful with father's money." His hand paused before the glass reached his lips. Elena continued watching him. "I've reviewed the company payments," she said. "There are transfers to at least 4 suppliers that do not exist." The orchestra began playing again, filling the air around them. Lorenzo's smile returned, but his eyes turned cold. "You have no authority to review those records." "I have access." "Access is not authority. Truth does not require permission." He stepped closer. "You think numbers make you intelligent. They do not. They make you useful. There is a difference." "Useful to whom?" "To whoever decides to keep you." Elena's skin prickled. "What does that mean?" Lorenzo glanced toward Dante. "It means your father's problems are more serious than you understand." "Then explain them." "That would not help you." "It might help me decide whether to call the Financial Crimes Division." Lorenzo's smile vanished completely. For one dangerous second, Elena saw the man beneath the expensive suit. Not a lawyer. Not a family advisor. A predator. "You would destroy your father," he said. "Someone is already doing that." "You have no proof." "Not yet." Lorenzo leaned close enough for Elena to smell the mint on his breath. "Then I suggest you stop looking before you discover something that cannot be forgotten." He walked away. Elena's heartbeat quickened. She turned toward the nearest exit. She needed to return to the warehouse and secure the copies she had made. If Lorenzo suspected what she knew, the documents might not remain safe for long. She took one step. A waiter collided with her shoulder. The champagne glass slipped from Elena's hand. It struck the marble and shattered. People nearby turned toward the sound. "I am so sorry, miss," the waiter said. Elena looked at him. His apology sounded sincere, but his eyes flicked toward Lorenzo. It had not been an accident. Before Elena could move, Bianca appeared. "What have you done?" she hissed. "It was a glass. You always find some way to embarrass us." The waiter hurried away. Bianca grabbed Elena's elbow and pulled her closer to the edge of the dance floor. "Father wants you gone." "That is convenient." "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means Lorenzo wants me gone too." Bianca rolled her eyes. "This evening is not about your imaginary conspiracies." "Did father tell you what he owes Dante?" Bianca's jaw tightened. "Lower your voice." $6 million. "Stop. Did he promise you to him?" Bianca's eyes flashed. "He did not promise anything. He arranged an introduction." "In exchange for what?" "A partnership." "With you as the contract?" Bianca's fingers dug into Elena's arm. "You cannot stand the thought that someone like Dante Morello might want me." "He barely looked at you." The cruelty struck its target. Bianca's face changed. Elena regretted the words immediately, not because they were false, but because a humiliated Bianca was dangerous. Her sister released her. Then she smiled. It was the same perfect smile she had worn earlier, but now it contained something vicious. "You are enjoying this." "No." "Yes, you are. For once, you think I might fail, and it makes your miserable little life feel less pathetic." "Bianca, you believe standing quietly makes you good. It doesn't. It makes you forgettable." Several nearby guests were watching now. Bianca raised her voice just enough for them to hear. "Tell me, Elena, how many men have asked you to dance tonight?" Elena felt the trap closing. None. And how many asked you last year? Bianca, stop. Or the year before that? A few women exchanged smiles. Elena's face grew hot. Bianca continued. You hide in warehouses and behind account books because numbers cannot reject you. Enough. You tell yourself you are independent because it hurts less than admitting nobody has ever chosen you. Elena looked around. People pretended not to listen. They listened anyway. Her father saw the confrontation from across the room but did nothing. Lorenzo watched with quiet satisfaction. This was what they wanted. They wanted Elena humiliated, distracted, and eager to leave. She should have walked away. Instead, 8 years of swallowed insults rose inside her. At least I do not need father to purchase someone's interest in me, she said. Bianca slapped her. The sound cut through the music. The orchestra stumbled to a stop. Elena's head turned with the force of the blow. For several seconds, the ballroom became completely silent. Her cheek burned. Bianca stared at her own hand, perhaps shocked by what she had done. Then she lifted her chin. Someone needed to remind you of your place. Elena slowly faced her sister. Tears threatened, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not for Bianca. She looked past her sister toward their father. Vittorio did not come to her. He looked away. Something inside Elena broke quietly. Not her heart. That had been broken many times. It was the final fragile thread connecting her to the belief that the Valenti family might one day treat her as one of their own. Bianca saw the emptiness settle into Elena's expression and mistook it for defeat. She stepped closer. No man would ever choose you, she whispered again. Now everyone here knows it. A chair scraped against the marble floor. The sound came from the center of the ballroom. Dante Morello had been seated at Senator Calvano's table. Now he was standing. The guests nearest him moved aside. Dante looked across the room. Not at Bianca. Not at Vittorio. At Elena. His gaze settled on the red mark spreading across her cheek. The entire ballroom seemed to understand at once that something had changed. Dante buttoned his tuxedo jacket. Then he began walking. Each step was slow and deliberate. People moved out of his path before he reached them. Elena's heartbeat became painfully loud. Bianca looked over her shoulder. The color disappeared from her face. Dante continued toward them. For one foolish moment, Bianca seemed to believe he was finally coming for her. She straightened her shoulders and smoothed the front of her gown. Mr. Morello, she began. He passed her. He did not slow down. He did not look at her. He stopped directly in front of Elena. Up close, he seemed even more imposing. The scar near his temple was longer than it appeared from a distance, disappearing into his hairline. His eyes were not black, as the newspapers often described them. They were deep gray, cold, observant, and unsettlingly calm. He looked at Elena's cheek. Did she hurt you? His voice was quiet. The question shocked Elena more than the slap. I'm fine. That was not what I asked. Every person near them had stopped breathing. Bianca found her voice. It was a private disagreement between sisters. Dante did not turn. Were you speaking to me? Bianca's lips parted. No. Then do not interrupt. Vittorio hurried forward. Mr. Morello, I apologize. My daughters have always been emotional with each other. Elena looked at her father in disbelief. Dante finally glanced toward him. Your daughter was struck in a room full of witnesses. Vittorio forced a laugh. It was nothing. Dante's expression became still. Elena sensed danger in that stillness. Then allow me to clarify something, Valenti, he said. When I ask whether a woman has been harmed, you do not decide the answer for her. Vittorio's smile collapsed. Dante returned his attention to Elena. Did she hurt you? Elena could have protected Bianca. She had done it before. She had covered for her when Bianca damaged their mother's jewelry, when she crashed their father's car, and when she secretly sold shares in one of the restaurants to fund a summer in Europe. Elena had always protected the family. The family had never protected her. Yes, she said. Bianca inhaled sharply. Dante extended his hand. Elena looked at it. The hand was broad, scarred across the knuckles, and steady. Dance with me, he said. A murmur swept through the ballroom. Elena thought she had misheard him. What? The orchestra appears to be waiting. The musicians stared at their conductor, uncertain whether they had permission to breathe. Elena looked at Dante's outstretched hand. You don't have to do this. I rarely do anything I have to do. Why me? His gaze remained on hers. Because everyone in this room has spent the evening showing me what they want. He glanced briefly toward Bianca, Vittorio, and Lorenzo. You are the only person who has shown me what she refuses to tolerate. Elena's pulse raced. She knew this could be a performance. A calculated insult directed at her father. A method of establishing control. Men like Dante Morello did not cross ballrooms without a reason. Still, when she placed her hand in his, something shifted inside the room. Not because she believed he had chosen her. Because Bianca believed it. And for the first time in Elena's life, her sister had no words. Dante led her toward the dance floor. The orchestra began again. His right hand settled respectfully at the center of Elena's back. His left held hers with surprising care. I should warn you, Elena murmured. I have not danced in years. I should warn you, he replied. Neither has anyone else in this room. They have only practiced being watched. He guided her into the first turn. Elena nearly stepped on his shoe. His hand tightened slightly at her back, steadying her. Relax. That is difficult when dancing with a man half the city believes has buried people beneath construction sites. Only half. Despite herself, Elena almost smiled. Dante noticed. Something unreadable passed through his eyes. They moved slowly beneath the chandeliers. The other guests remained at the edges of the floor. No one dared join them. Elena could feel Bianca's stare burning into her back. Her father stood beside Lorenzo, speaking through clenched teeth. You did not answer my question, Elena said. Which one? Why me? I answered. No. You gave the room an answer. His gaze sharpened. You recognize the difference. I work with contracts. The difference between what is said and what is meant is usually where the danger hides. Your father told me you manage inventory. He talks about me? When he needs someone to blame. That sounds more familiar. Dante turned her smoothly. What do you know about his debt? Elena's step faltered. There was. The reason. She looked up at him. Enough to know this dance is not about my wounded pride. No. At least you're honest. I have found honesty becomes more valuable when everyone expects you to lie. $6 million, Elena said. The loan is overdue. Dante's hand remained steady against her back. Correct. My father brought Bianca here because he thinks you will exchange his debt for access to her. Your father believes many foolish things. Did you agree to meet her? I agreed to attend the ball. That is not the same answer. No. Elena studied him. Why did you lend him the money? I did not. She frowned. The documents bear your seal. They bear a copied version of my seal. Cold moved through Elena. A forged agreement? A genuine agreement altered after it left my office. By whom? That is what I intend to discover. Elena's gaze moved instinctively toward Lorenzo. Dante noticed. Interesting, he said. What? You looked at your family's lawyer. Elena faced him again. I looked nowhere. You are a poor liar. And you are studying me instead of dancing. I can do both. The music shifted into a slower passage. Dante guided her closer, keeping enough distance to remain proper. Someone used your father's failing companies to move money through Morello accounts, he said. The missing amount is not 6 million. Elena's mouth went dry. How much? 24 million. Her feet stopped. Dante prevented them from colliding by shifting his weight. That's impossible. No. My father's businesses have never handled that much cash. Legally. Elena looked toward Vittorio. His face was pale. Lorenzo whispered something to him and began moving toward a side exit. Elena's heartbeat jumped. He's leaving. Who? Lorenzo. Dante turned slightly without appearing to look. One of the men stationed near the ballroom doors immediately changed position, blocking Lorenzo's path. Lorenzo stopped. He looked back toward the dance floor. For the first time that evening, his careful composure cracked. Dante had seen Elena notice him, and with one nearly invisible signal, he had prevented the lawyer from escaping. "Why tell me this?" Elena asked. "Because 3 weeks ago, someone entered the Morello archive and replaced several original invoices with convincing copies. I had nothing to do with that." "I know." "How?" "The person was captured on a security camera." "Then you know who it was." "Their face was hidden." Dante's gaze dropped briefly to the silver pendant at Elena's throat. "But they were wearing that necklace." Elena stopped breathing. Her hand rose instinctively to her mother's pendant. "That is impossible. The design is uncommon. My mother had two made." Dante's eyes remained fixed on hers. "For whom?" Elena slowly turned her head. Bianca stood at the edge of the dance floor. Her throat was bare. But Elena remembered the night 3 weeks earlier when Bianca had entered the warehouse after midnight. She had claimed she was searching for an old passport. That same morning, Elena had discovered their mother's second pendant missing from the locked jewelry cabinet. Bianca had denied taking it. "No," Elena whispered. Dante's voice lowered. "Your sister did not slap you because you embarrassed her." Elena felt the room tilt around her. "She slapped you because you were getting too close to the truth." The music continued, but Elena could barely hear it. Bianca stared at them from across the room. Fear had replaced fury in her eyes. Elena looked toward Lorenzo again. He no longer appeared concerned about leaving. He was watching Bianca, warning her, controlling her. Pieces began moving into place. The false suppliers, the forged loan, the missing pendant, the waiter deliberately knocking the glass from Elena's hand. Bianca's public humiliation meant to drive her from the ballroom. "You knew," Elena said. "I suspected. You used me to watch their reactions." "Yes." Her hand pulled against his. Dante did not release it. "So this entire dance is an interrogation." "Partly. And the other part?" His gray eyes held hers. "I wanted to know whether you would take my hand after being told no man would ever offer his." Elena felt anger rise through the shock. "You heard her?" "I heard enough." "Then you should understand why I do not want to become another object in a man's strategy." "You are not an object." "I am bait." "No," Dante's voice hardened. "Bait is left unprotected." The final notes of the song approached. He leaned closer, speaking so only she could hear. "In less than 1 minute, the lights in this ballroom will go out." Elena stared at him. "What?" "Someone has already disabled the emergency cameras near the eastern corridor." A pulse of fear struck her. "Why?" "Because Lorenzo believes you brought documents from your father's office." "I did." Dante's jaw tightened. "Where are they?" "Inside the lining of my coat." "Where is the coat?" "The cloakroom." For the first time, urgency entered his expression. "Elena, listen carefully. When the lights go out, do not move away from me." "Is Bianca involved?" "I do not know how deeply." "Is my father?" "I do not know." "Then what do you know?" Dante's hand tightened around hers. "That someone in your family has decided you cannot leave this building alive." The orchestra struck the final note. The chandeliers went dark. The darkness swallowed the ballroom so completely that Elena could no longer see Dante standing in front of her. The final vibration of the orchestra's last note faded into silence. Then someone screamed. Chairs scraped across marble. Glass shattered. Men shouted for security while women called out the names of husbands, daughters, and guards. Elena felt the crowd surge toward the exits. Dante's arm locked around her waist. "Stay close." His voice came beside her ear, calm and controlled. A second later, something sliced through the space where Elena's head had been. She heard the sharp whistle of metal and the heavy impact of an object striking the dance floor. Dante pulled her down. "Move." He guided her through the darkness with one arm around her, using his body to shield her from the panicked guests. Elena could hear footsteps approaching from their left, too deliberate to belong to frightened civilians. Dante changed direction immediately. A man grunted. There was the dull sound of a powerful blow, followed by a body collapsing against the floor. Elena stumbled. Dante caught her before she fell. "You said not to move away from you," she whispered breathlessly. "I also expected you to remain on your feet. I cannot see anything. I can see enough." Before Elena could ask how, a faint red light appeared near the ballroom entrance. One of Dante's men had activated a tactical lamp that cast the room in a dim crimson glow. The scene looked unreal. Guests crouched beneath tables. Security guards shouted into radios. Waiters pressed themselves against the walls. Near the center of the dance floor lay a slender knife. Its blade had buried itself between two marble tiles. Elena stared at it. Someone had thrown it at her. Dante followed her gaze. "That was not meant to frighten you." His tone was so quiet that it frightened her more. Across the ballroom, Lorenzo Bassi was gone. Bianca was no longer standing where Elena had last seen her. Their father remained near the staircase, gripping the banister with both hands. The emergency lights flickered on. A weak golden glow filled the room. Dante's men secured the doors. "No one leaves," one of them announced. Several influential guests immediately protested. Dante ignored them. He looked down at Elena. "Are you injured?" "No. Your hands are shaking. There is a knife in the floor where my face was a few seconds ago. That explains the shaking. You sound disappointed that I noticed. I am relieved you are still capable of sarcasm." Elena pressed a hand against her chest, trying to slow her breathing. "Bianca is missing. So is Lorenzo. My coat is in the eastern cloakroom." Dante's eyes hardened. "They are going for the documents." Elena pulled away from his supporting arm. "Then we have to stop them." "We?" "Yes, we. You will remain here. You just told me someone wants me dead. Standing in the middle of the ballroom does not sound safe. You will be surrounded by my men. And while I am surrounded, Lorenzo will destroy the only records proving what he did." Dante studied her. There was no time for negotiation, but he seemed almost curious to see whether she would obey. Elena lifted her chin. "I know the building better than he does." "How?" "My mother worked with the St. Aurelia Foundation. I spent half my childhood hiding in these corridors during charity meetings." A crash came from somewhere beyond the eastern doors. Dante turned toward the sound. Elena continued. "There is a service staircase behind the musicians' gallery. It reaches the cloakroom without using the main corridor." "You will show me." It was not permission. It was a decision. Dante signaled to two of his men. One remained behind to secure the guests while the other joined them. Vittorio suddenly stepped into their path. "Elena, come with me." She stared at him. Only minutes earlier, he had watched Bianca slap her and had described it as nothing. Now fear had transformed him into a concerned father. "Where is Bianca?" Elena asked. "I don't know. You were speaking with Lorenzo all evening. He is our lawyer. He is stealing from us." Vittorio glanced at Dante. "Do not discuss family matters here." Dante stepped between them. "This stopped being a family matter when someone attempted murder in my ballroom." "This is not your ballroom," Vittorio said weakly. Dante looked around the grand hall bearing his family's name. A few guests lowered their eyes. Vittorio swallowed. "You know what I mean." "I know exactly what you mean," Dante replied. "You want to control the story before your daughter tells me the truth." Vittorio's face tightened. "Elena knows nothing." Elena felt the last of her hesitation disappear. "I know you signed a $6 million loan agreement." Her father froze. "I know the document was altered. I know $24 million moved through companies connected to our warehouses. I know Lorenzo created false suppliers, and I know Bianca entered the Morello archive wearing mother's pendant." Vittorio stared at her as though she had become a stranger. "You went through my records. That is what concerns you? You had no right. Someone tried to kill me. You always exaggerate." Elena looked at the knife embedded in the floor. Then she looked back at him. Vittorio's eyes followed hers. His expression changed, but not enough. Not like a father who had nearly lost a child. Like a man realizing a plan had failed. Elena's stomach turned cold. "You knew," she whispered. Vittorio's lips parted. Dante moved before he could answer. He gripped Vittorio by the front of his tuxedo and pushed him against the marble pillar. Several guests gasped. Dante's voice remained low. "If you had knowledge of this attack, choose your next words with great care." Vittorio's face reddened. "I knew nothing about a knife." That was not a denial. "I did not order anyone to hurt her." Elena heard the careful wording. Dante did too. "Who did?" he asked. "I don't know." Dante tightened his grip. Vittorio's shoes slipped against the marble. "Elena," her father pleaded. "Tell him to release me." For years, Vittorio had taught her that family loyalty meant silence. It meant protecting Bianca. It meant repairing mistakes made by men who never apologized. It meant carrying burdens no one else wanted. Now he asked for that loyalty while refusing to answer the simplest question. Did he know someone intended to hurt her? Elena looked into his frightened eyes. "Tell me where Bianca went." "I don't know." "Tell me what Lorenzo gave you." "A note." "What did it say?" Vittorio hesitated. Dante pushed him harder against the pillar. "Answer her." "It said Elena had copied the warehouse accounts." Vittorio gasped. "It said she planned to give them to Morello." Elena felt sick. "And what did Lorenzo tell you to do?" "Convince her to leave." "And if I refused?" Vittorio said nothing. Elena's voice shook. "What was supposed to happen if I refused?" Her father looked away. Dante released him with sudden disgust. Vittorio collapsed against the pillar, coughing. That silence had answered everything. Elena turned toward the eastern corridor. "Take me to the cloakroom," she said. Dante watched her face. She knew he saw the pain there. Perhaps he even understood it. But he did not offer comfort. Not then. He simply placed a hand at the center of her back. "Lead the way." They crossed behind the musician's platform and entered a narrow service passage. The noise of the ballroom faded behind them. Elena lifted the hem of her gown and moved quickly through the corridor. Pipes lined the ceiling. Boxes of decorations were stacked against one wall, and the weak emergency lights cast long shadows across the concrete floor. Dante's guard followed several steps behind. "What is his name?" Elena whispered. "Whose?" "The man following us." "Marco." She glanced back. Marco was tall and heavily built, with a compact weapon held low at his side. "Does he always look that unhappy?" "Yes." "I can hear you," Marco said. Dante's mouth shifted slightly. Elena almost smiled, but the sound of hurried footsteps above them erased the moment. She pointed toward a metal staircase. "The cloakroom is on the next floor." Dante caught her arm before she climbed. "Wait." He listened. Elena heard it too. A door opening. Then Bianca's voice. "You said she would already be gone." Lorenzo answered in a harsh whisper. "She should have been. You promised no one would be hurt. You agreed to help me steal confidential documents from the Morello archive. Do not pretend this is where your conscience suddenly awakened." Elena's chest tightened. Dante motioned for silence. They climbed slowly. At the top of the staircase, a narrow door stood partly open. Through the gap, Elena could see rows of coats and evening wraps. Bianca stood near the far wall, clutching Elena's dark cloak. Lorenzo was tearing at the inner lining with a small blade. The papers Elena had hidden there fell onto the floor. Bianca stared at them. "What are those?" "Evidence," Lorenzo said. "Against you?" "Against everyone." He gathered the pages. Bianca stepped back. "You told me the money belonged to people who would never notice it." "They noticed. You said father would be protected. Your father signed every document I placed in front of him. He trusted you." Lorenzo gave a quiet laugh. "Your father trusted greed. I merely gave it instructions." Elena pressed a hand against the doorframe. She had suspected Lorenzo. She had feared Bianca's involvement. But hearing the truth was different. Bianca had known enough to steal from the Morello archive. She had known enough to lie. Perhaps she had not known about the attack, but she had helped build the trap around Elena. Dante leaned close. "Stay behind me." Elena shook her head. "She is my sister. She may be armed. She has never held anything more dangerous than a champagne glass. She just helped steal $24 million. That does not mean she knows how to use a weapon. It means she can afford someone who does." Before Dante could stop her, Elena pushed the door open. Bianca spun around. "Elena!" Lorenzo immediately reached inside his jacket. Marco entered behind Dante and raised his weapon. "Remove your hand," Marco ordered. Lorenzo froze. Dante stepped into the cloakroom. He did not need to raise his voice. "Place the papers on the table." Lorenzo looked toward the only other exit. Marco moved to block it. Bianca dropped Elena's damaged cloak. "This is not what it looks like." Elena stared at her. That sentence is usually spoken when something is exactly what it looks like. "I was trying to help father." "By stealing from Dante?" "I did not steal money. You entered his archive. Lorenzo said the documents there could protect us." "Protect you from what?" Bianca's eyes filled with anger. "From losing everything. We already lost everything. You live above a warehouse, Elena. You have nothing to lose." The words struck with familiar cruelty, but this time Elena heard the fear behind them. Bianca was terrified of becoming ordinary, of losing the dresses, the invitations, the people who smiled because of the Valenti name. Elena took another step. "Did you know someone planned to attack me?" "No. Look at me and answer." Bianca did. For once, she seemed stripped of every practiced expression. "No," she said. "I knew Lorenzo wanted you out of the ballroom. He said you would ruin the agreement with Dante. He told me to provoke you until you left. You slapped me. You humiliated me. You told me no man would ever choose me." Bianca's gaze moved toward Dante. The bitterness returned. "And then he did." Dante's expression did not change. Elena's did. "That is what still matters to you? You do not understand what tonight was supposed to mean. It was supposed to erase father's debt by selling you to a man you had never met. I was willing. For the family? For myself," Bianca snapped. "Is that what you wanted to hear? I was tired of pretending father's businesses were not collapsing. I was tired of creditors calling. I was tired of wearing diamonds we did not own and smiling at women who knew we were almost bankrupt." Her voice cracked. "I wanted one thing that could not be taken from me." Elena looked at her sister. For a moment, she saw the frightened girl beneath the expensive gown. Then Bianca looked at Dante again. "You crossed the room for her to punish us." Dante answered without hesitation. "I crossed the room because she was the only person there who did not bore me." Bianca flinched as though he had struck her. Elena wished his words had not warmed some hidden part of her. This was not the time. Lorenzo suddenly grabbed Bianca. He pulled her against him and pressed a small pistol beneath her jaw. Marco shifted his aim. Dante did not move. Bianca went completely still. "Lorenzo," she whispered. "Be quiet." His polished mask was gone. Sweat shone across his forehead. His eyes darted between Dante and the exit. "You will let me leave," he said. Dante's voice remained calm. "No. I have your precious evidence. You have copies." Lorenzo looked toward Elena. "Then perhaps I should take the woman who knows how to read them." His grip tightened around Bianca. She whimpered. Elena's heart raced, but Dante seemed almost indifferent. "You chose the wrong sister," he said. Bianca's eyes widened. Lorenzo frowned. Dante continued. "Elena will not trade her life for someone who helped put a target on her back." Elena turned toward him. He did not look at her. He was watching Lorenzo's hand. Dante was lying. She understood suddenly. He wanted Lorenzo to believe Bianca had no value. Bianca understood too late. Lorenzo shifted his attention toward Elena. That moment was enough. Marco fired. The shot cracked through the narrow room. Lorenzo cried out as the weapon flew from his hand. Blood spread across the sleeve near his shoulder, but the injury did not appear fatal. Bianca tore herself free. Dante crossed the room in 3 strides and drove Lorenzo face-first against the table. The stolen pages scattered across the floor. Lorenzo struggled. Dante twisted his injured arm behind his back. "You should have taken the exit when the lights went out," Dante said. "You would have found me." "Yes." "Then there was no exit." "No." Marco secured Lorenzo's wrists with plastic restraints. Bianca stood against the wall, trembling. Elena approached her. For a second, neither knew what to say. Then Bianca whispered, "He could have killed me." "Yes. You did not come to me. I was trying to understand whether you helped him." "I am your sister. And I was yours when you helped him target me." Bianca looked away. The words landed, but Elena felt no satisfaction. Only exhaustion. Marco pulled Lorenzo upright. The lawyer's face was twisted with pain, yet he managed to smile at Elena. "You think this ends with me?" "No," Elena said. "It begins with you." Lorenzo's smile weakened. She picked up one of the pages. "I found payments to 4 shell companies. Each company transferred money to a private bank controlled by a trust. You cannot prove who controls it." "I can now." Lorenzo's eyes narrowed. Elena held up the page. "You corrected one of the account numbers by hand. I recognized your 7. You always draw a line through it." For the first time, true fear entered his face. Dante looked at her. "You identified him through handwriting?" "I told you. I recognize lies." Lorenzo was taken away. Bianca remained beside the wall while Elena collected the scattered documents. Dante crouched to help her. She looked at him. "You lied to Lorenzo." "Yes. You said I would not trade my life for Bianca's. Would you?" Elena glanced at her sister. "I don't know. That hesitation is why I answered for you. You do that often." "When necessary." "And who decides when it is necessary?" "I do." "That may become a problem." Dante handed her the final page. His eyes met hers. "I expect it will." When they returned to the ballroom, the guests were still being questioned. The lights had been restored. The orchestra remained silent. Vittorio stood near a table surrounded by 2 of Dante's men. He hurried toward Bianca. "My darling, are you hurt?" Bianca stared at him. Elena saw realization move across her sister's face. Their father had known Lorenzo intended to remove Elena from the ballroom. He may not have known about the knife, but he had accepted the risk. Bianca stepped away from his embrace. "You knew," she said. Vittorio's expression tightened. "I knew Lorenzo planned to frighten Elena. He held a gun against my throat. I had no idea he was armed." "You never have any idea," Elena said. "You sign papers you do not read. You borrow money you cannot repay. You allow other people to make decisions and then claim innocence when those decisions destroy us." Vittorio looked at Dante. "Mr. Morello, I have been deceived. Lorenzo manipulated my family." Dante's expression remained cold. "You accepted money. I believed it was a legitimate loan. You used part of it to maintain your lifestyle. I intended to repay it." "With your daughter?" Vittorio's face reddened. "I never offered Bianca as payment." Bianca laughed bitterly. "No. You only dressed me in red because someone told you he liked it." Several guests heard. Vittorio lowered his voice. "We will discuss this at home." "There is no home," Bianca said. "The townhouse belongs to the bank." Vittorio stared at her. She had known more than Elena realized. Bianca removed the diamond bracelet from her wrist. She placed it on the table between them. "This is rented too, isn't it?" Her father said nothing. She pulled the earrings from her ears and placed them beside the bracelet. Then she walked away from him. Elena watched her sister cross the ballroom alone. For the first time, Bianca was not performing for anyone. She looked frightened, but she also looked free. Dante turned toward Vittorio. "The Valenti companies will be placed under temporary control of Morello Holdings until the stolen money is traced." Vittorio shook his head. "You cannot take my businesses." "I can. You have no legal authority." Dante looked toward Senator Calvano. The senator suddenly found the floor fascinating. Dante returned his attention to Vittorio. Would you prefer to challenge me? Vittorio lowered his eyes. Dante continued. You will cooperate with the investigation. You will surrender access to every account, property, contract, and company record. And my debt. The original 6 million never existed. Relief appeared on Vittorio's face. Dante was not finished. But you knowingly spent funds that did not belong to you. Until the full amount is recovered, you will receive a modest monthly allowance. A modest allowance? You may discover how your daughter has lived while keeping your warehouses open. Vittorio looked at Elena. There was anger in his eyes. Not gratitude. Not remorse. Anger that she had survived and exposed him. Dante noticed. He stepped closer to Vittorio. If anything happens to Elena, even something you consider an accident, I will assume you arranged it. Vittorio swallowed. You cannot threaten me in front of witnesses. Dante glanced around the silent ballroom. Which witnesses? No one spoke. Vittorio's shoulders sank. Dante turned away from him. The room gradually began moving again, though the celebration was over. Guests gathered coats and whispered about what they had seen. Elena stood near the dance floor, staring at the broken champagne glass still glittering beside the pillar. Only an hour had passed since Bianca told her no man would choose her. Now her father's empire had collapsed, her sister had been exposed, and the most dangerous man in the city had placed himself between Elena and a knife. None of it felt like victory. Dante came to stand beside her. You are tired. That is an insulting understatement. You should eat. I was almost murdered, my sister helped rob you, and my father tried to exchange her for financial mercy. I did not say you should enjoy the meal. Elena looked at him. Do you solve every emotional crisis with food? No. Sometimes whiskey. A quiet laugh escaped her before she could stop it. Dante watched her. The intensity of his attention returned, but this time it felt different. Less like an interrogation. More like recognition. She looked away first. What happens to Lorenzo? He will be questioned. And after that? You do not want the answer. You keep deciding what I want. I am preventing you from carrying information you cannot put down. I already know what kind of man you are. No, Dante said. You know what frightened people say about me. Elena faced him. And what should I believe instead? Believe what you see. I saw you order armed men to seal a ballroom. After someone tried to kill you. I saw Marco shoot Lorenzo. After Lorenzo placed a gun against Bianca. I saw you threaten my father. That required no weapon. Elena folded her arms. You have an answer for everything. Not everything. What do you not have an answer for? Dante looked at her for a long moment. Why you took my hand? Her anger softened. I told you. Bianca said no one ever would. That explains why you wanted to prove her wrong. It does. It does not explain why you trusted me. I didn't. His eyebrow lifted slightly. Elena continued. I trusted the fact that every dangerous person in the room was afraid of you. At that moment, standing near you seemed safer than standing near my own family. The amusement disappeared from his face. That should not have been true. But it was. He looked toward the doors. Come with me. Where? Somewhere with fewer knives. That does not narrow it down in your world. It does tonight. He offered his arm. Elena stared at it. This is becoming a habit. You may refuse. She looked across the ballroom. Her father was being escorted away to answer questions. Bianca stood near the entrance, speaking quietly with one of Dante's female security officers. She would be taken somewhere safe for the night. Elena had no desire to return to the warehouse alone. She placed her hand against Dante's arm. He led her out through the front entrance. Rain had begun falling over the city. A black car waited at the bottom of the steps. Dante opened the rear door for her. Elena paused. Am I being taken to your office to audit another criminal empire? Not tonight. Then where? Dinner. She stared at him. You are asking me to dinner now? You said the dance was an interrogation. It was. I would like to correct the impression. By conducting another interrogation over food? By allowing you to question me? That could take hours. I own the restaurant. Of course you do. She entered the car. Dante sat beside her. As they drove away from the palace, Elena watched the golden lights disappear through the rain-covered window. For most of her life, she had believed strength meant enduring whatever her family did to her. She had mistaken silence for loyalty. She had mistaken invisibility for safety. That evening had taught her something else. Sometimes survival began when a person stopped begging to be valued by those determined not to see her. Dante removed his jacket and placed it across her shoulders. Elena looked at him. I am not cold. You are shaking. That is adrenaline. Adrenaline does not prevent pneumonia. You are surprisingly argumentative for someone who expects instant obedience. You are surprisingly disobedient for someone sitting in my car. She pulled the jacket around herself. It smelled faintly of cedar, rain, and smoke. Dante. Yes. Did you truly cross the ballroom because I refused to tolerate Bianca's cruelty? Partly. What was the other reason? He looked out at the wet streets. I had seen you before. Elena frowned. Where? 6 months ago, at the Southern Valenti warehouse. You were there? I came to examine a shipment your father claimed had been damaged. I remember that shipment. You argued with 3 delivery men because the inventory count was wrong. They were short by 42 cases. You made them unload the entire truck again in the rain. They found the missing cases. I know. Dante turned toward her. You were soaked, furious, and completely unaware that everyone around you was afraid of the men standing behind me. Elena searched her memory. She remembered several black cars parked across the street. She had assumed they belonged to customs officials. You watched me. For 20 minutes. You could have introduced yourself. You threatened to call the police on one of my captains. He forged a delivery signature. He still remembers you. Elena covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. Dante's expression softened. When I entered the ballroom tonight, I recognized you. So you did not choose a stranger. No. But you still used me to expose Lorenzo. Yes. At least you admit it. I also prevented a knife from entering your skull. That does improve your position. Significantly. The car stopped outside a small restaurant with dark windows and no visible sign. Dante stepped out and offered his hand. Elena took it. This time, no ballroom watched. No sister mocked her. No father calculated her value. There was only the rain, the quiet street, and a man powerful enough to command an entire city waiting for her to decide. Elena stepped onto the pavement. Dante did not release her hand. Tomorrow, he said, you will help me trace the remaining money. That sounds less like a request than the dinner invitation. It is employment. I already have a job. Your employer is under investigation. That is inconvenient. You will be compensated. How much? He named a figure. Elena stopped walking. That is more than my father paid me in 5 years. Your father was exploiting you. I know. Then accept. Not until I see a contract. Dante's mouth curved into a rare, genuine smile. I expected you to say that. And I want independent legal advice. Granted. No hidden clauses. That depends on your definition of hidden. She narrowed her eyes. Dante. No hidden clauses. And I do not belong to you. His smile disappeared. The seriousness in his gaze made the air between them feel suddenly still. No, he said. You do not. Elena waited. You may work beside me, he continued. You may argue with me, challenge me, and refuse me. But you will never belong to me unless you choose to give me something freely. Her heartbeat changed. That sounded dangerously close to respect. Do not spread the rumor. She smiled. Dante opened the restaurant door. Warm light spilled onto the rain-dark pavement. Elena stepped inside beside him, not behind him. Behind them, the city was already beginning to whisper about the charity ball. By morning, everyone would know that Bianca Valenti had mocked her quiet younger sister before the most feared man in the city crossed the room. But they would misunderstand the most important part. Dante Morello had not rescued Elena because she was helpless. He had noticed her because she was the only person in the ballroom strong enough to stand alone. And Elena had not taken his hand because she needed a man to prove her sister wrong. She had taken it because, for the first time, someone had offered her a choice without first demanding that she become smaller. The stolen millions would take months to trace. Lorenzo's network would reveal corrupt officials, false companies, and enemies hidden inside the Morello organization. Bianca would have to rebuild a life without borrowed diamonds or a family name to protect her. Vittorio would learn that losing his fortune was easier than earning back the trust of his daughters. And Dante would discover that inviting Elena into his empire meant allowing one woman to question every rule he had spent his life enforcing. But those battles belonged to another night. For now, Elena sat across from Dante in an empty restaurant while rain struck the windows. A waiter placed food between them and disappeared. Dante poured water into her glass. "No champagne?" she asked. "You did not drink the one you had." "You noticed." "I noticed everything." Elena studied him across the candlelight. "That must be exhausting." "It is." "Then perhaps you should occasionally allow someone else to pay attention." His hand paused around the bottle. "And are you volunteering?" "Perhaps." The words settled between them. Not a promise. Not surrender. A beginning. Dante raised his glass. "To choices." Elena lifted hers. "To contracts I have not yet signed." Their glasses touched softly. And for the first time that night, Elena did not feel overlooked, humiliated, or afraid. She felt seen. If you have stayed with Elena through the ballroom humiliation, the betrayal, and the moment she finally stood up to the family that had treated her as invisible, subscribe to the channel because more powerful Mafia stories are waiting for you here. And tell us in the comments, what was your favorite moment? Was it when Dante walked past Bianca and asked Elena to dance? When Elena exposed Lorenzo through his handwriting? Or when she finally told Dante that she belonged to no one? Like this video, share it with someone who loves emotional Mafia stories, and subscribe so you do not miss the next unforgettable story.